Childbirth. It's something we've all been through, at least on one end. As routine and commonplace as childbirth is, it's also easily one of the riskiest and most stressful times in a woman's life. In fact, childbirth is the sixth most common cause of death among women aged 20 to 34 in the United States. While that is certainly a serious risk, the odds of death during childbirth have dropped significantly throughout human history. This is Intrigued Mind, where everything is interesting. Be sure to like and subscribe to make sure that you never miss a video. Today in the US, about 15 women die out of every 100,000 live births. That number is still certainly high. However, a century ago, it was more than 600 women per 100,000 births. In the 15th and 16th centuries, the death rate was twice that, with the average woman having a nearly 4% chance of death during childbirth in their lives. In the final stages of pregnancy and during childbirth, there are so many things that can go wrong. Pregnant women are sapped of energy and susceptible to infectious diseases. The baby's head is enormous, and human pelvises have evolved to be smaller. Human labor takes much longer than other primates. Women often push for days. With all these risks, the fact that the childbirth mortality rate in the modern world is only 1/50th of what it was historically is a testament to the awesome power of modern medicine. But it also raises the question, what was childbirth actually like in the Middle Ages? Before hospitals, modern knowledge of anatomy, epidurals, and all the bells and whistles in a typical delivery room. While some of it was pretty similar to what we see today, much was a product of the time. While today, the answer to "Am I pregnant?" is typically as easy as going down to the pharmacy and grabbing a pregnancy test. This is an incredibly recent luxury. The first reliable at-home pregnancy test wasn't available until the 1970s. Before that, there was no truly accurate way to determine if someone was pregnant or not. But that didn't mean that there weren't tests being done that claimed to be accurate. The concept of pregnancy tests hasn't changed that much in more than 3,000 years. The earliest means of assessing a woman's pregnancy dates back to ancient Egypt. According to a papyrus from around 1350 BCE, a woman could urinate on wheat and barley seeds, and if the barley grows, it means a male child. If the wheat grows, it means a female child. If both do not grow, she will not bear at all. This might sound like something of an old wives' tale, but testing of this theory in 1963 found that 70% of the time, the urine of pregnant women did cause seeds to grow, while the urine of non-pregnant women and men did not. By the Middle Age, the idea that urine was an indicator of pregnancy was still established. Sometimes we actually get things right the first time. But the method of evaluation had changed considerably. In Europe, so-called piss prophets claimed to be able to diagnose many different conditions by evaluating the color, consistency, and even taste of urine. In a 1552 text, pregnancy urine was described as a clear pale lemon color leaning toward off-white, having a cloud on its surface. Another common test was mixing wine with urine and observing the results. This might sound odd, but alcohol reacts with certain proteins in urine, so this might have had some success. However, for most women of the day, the knowledge of pregnancy didn't come until around 5 months in, when the child first begins to move on its own, a time commonly referred to as the quickening. It might seem strange today that someone could go 5 whole months without even realizing that they were carrying a child, but it's actually surprisingly common. There was even a whole reality TV show about it. The sign that most women look for today, a missed period, was far more common in the Middle Ages due to malnutrition and a more physically demanding lifestyle. So, once you realize that there was a baby on the way, you might only have a few months to actually enjoy your pregnancy. There's no shortage of advice given out to pregnant women today about what they should or shouldn't do, eat, wear, bathe, sleep, etc. While some of these are absolutely medically sound best practices, there is no safe amount of alcohol during pregnancy, for example. Many are simply superstitions and folklore. A high belly and cravings for pickles could mean that you're carrying a boy or a girl, depending on who you talk to. These sorts of claims are nothing new, and the Middle Ages had their own strange customs regarding how to treat expectant mothers. The most detailed account of advice for medieval pregnancy can be found in a French text from the late 15th century, known as the Distaff Gospels. What makes this text especially interesting is that it was not written by male, university-educated physicians, but instead by a group of local peasant women. The Distaff Gospels cover advice for women on everything, including female health, choosing a good husband, living a good life, and raising a successful family. But much of the discussion surrounds conception, pregnancy, and childbirth. Much of the advice given doesn't really hold water today, but it's worth pointing out some of these. The Gospels tell women to make sure that their partner doesn't have smelly feet, stating that if he does, your child will be smelly their whole life. If the child is a boy, he will have smelly feet too. If the child is a girl, she will have a smelly rear end. Make sure you're not a nun or a priest. It apparently can be easy to forget sometimes. Don't eat fish heads, or your baby will be born with an upturned and pointy mouth. Eat white bread dipped in wine to keep your baby small to ensure an easy birth. We now know that this is true. Alcohol consumption does lead to decreased birth weight, but it is very much not a good thing. And my personal favorite, don't throw cherries, strawberries, or red wine in the face of a pregnant woman, or the baby will have marks on its body. How common was it to throw fruit in people's faces? Was it okay to throw strawberries at a pregnant woman's back or legs? I have questions. While we now know that this advice is, well, bad, it was the best that the people of the time had, and they took it incredibly seriously. After all, this was easily the most dangerous time of a woman's life, and things were only about to get riskier. If pregnancy was a walk in the park, it's not. Childbirth is climbing Mount Everest. Even with all of our recent medical breakthroughs of the last century, it's still a harrowing experience for many women. Things back in the day, though, were much, much worse. The most obvious difference between medieval and modern childbirth is the location. While these days, it's straight to the hospital at the first signs of labor, up until the 20th century, there was no place like home. In fact, if you were in the aristocracy or merchant class, you likely retired to a birthing chamber, a darkened room provided with soft furnishings a full month before you were expected to give birth. In stark contrast to today, hospitals of the time were very much a last resort for pregnant women. Medieval hospitals were charitable institutions often run by the church with a focus on the sick poor. Unsurprisingly, it was women with an unstable home life who most commonly found themselves in hospital birth wards. Unmarried mothers were especially in need of hospital care, as their social situation meant that their children were often abandoned and needed to be fed by wet nurses at foundling hospitals. And it wasn't just the location that was different, but who was in the room. At the time, women's health, and particularly childbirth, was viewed as women's business and men didn't want to interfere. This meant that there were no trained medical professionals in the room, as the universities of the day did not allow women admission. This meant that few women practiced as surgeons, but many women were married to men in these fields, leading to the creation of the role of the midwife. Midwifery would quickly become women's primary role within the medical world. Birthing a child in the Middle Ages really was a community effort, with family members, parish priests, and local experts all lending a hand. When midwives were needed, they typically worked in teams. An account from the late 12th century describes the presence of 7 midwives at the labor of Eliza of Middleton. This might seem excessive, but such a large team could pool their knowledge and share the demanding tasks involved in assisting the delivery. Doctors were only rarely involved in childbirth, although they were sometimes called upon by aristocratic women. Blanche d'Anjou, the second queen of James II, was attended to by physicians during all 10 of her births. Sadly, even with all of the resources available to a queen, she died in 1310 soon after delivery. Childbirth was a harrowing experience for medieval women, with little access to pain relief or control over what was happening. However, the birthing chamber was well equipped for the time, and midwives had the expertise to ensure a smooth delivery and to intervene in the event of any complications. With as much danger and uncertainty as medieval pregnancy and childbirth provided, it's little wonder that many women turned to religion for guidance, protection, and assistance. Many people of the day believed in several saints that were supposed to support a safe pregnancy and birth. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the majority of these saints were female, with the most prominent being the Virgin Mary and Saint Margaret. Devotional artifacts, such as small statues of saints and birthing girdles, were used by less affluent women and nobles alike. The basic premise was that a material object connected to a saint has some kind of beneficial power. Prior to the birth of her 7th or 8th child, Elizabeth of York, the queen of King Henry VII of England, paid a monk to bring her a girdle of the Virgin Mary, and she also visited a monastery at Hampton Court to gain further divine protection. Nonetheless, she died after the delivery in February 1503, as did her infant daughter. Childbirth really was the great equalizer among women. Even after successfully delivering a healthy baby, life for a new mother and child in the Middle Ages wasn't easy. Life expectancy at the time was only about 33 years old. However, this number is a bit confusing. In Europe, around 1/3 of infants died before their first birthday. However, those who made it out of childhood fared much better. In the 15th century, a male who made it to age 21 could reasonably expect to survive to nearly 70. Everyone just had to make it through the harrowing first journey of childbirth. For more videos on the most amazing forgotten parts of our history, be sure to subscribe to the Intrigued Mind channel, like the video, and leave your suggestions in the comments below.